The summer after senior year is filled with many happy memories that many of us will never forget. This is not one of those memories. Be me, 18, living in the Willamette Valley of Oregon. Senior year is about to get out and it's been warm lately. Let's froggen ragemate.jpg. Plan huge senior skip day party up by a lake a town over. There are actually 2 lakes near the next town. One is lower than the other, and the higher one is warmer and used to fill the second one during the summer. We decided the best bet for the party would be at the higher lake, because less cops, more forest to run and hide in and more privacy for our heathen ways. Fast forward a couple days to the day of the party. A metric flagon of people are headed up to swim and party with us. Probably more like 20, but we filled 2 Suburban and 1 pickup. Driving up, everyone is cramped and excited, singing along to songs and drinking. Pretty fun time. The road we were on was pretty windy, with a steep hill going up on one side and smaller downward sloping hill leading down to the lake on the other. We pull off to the shoulder and a small army of hormones unloads into the water. Water is warm, girls are pretty enough and the drinks are flowing. We don't even hear the man come up on us. Suddenly a girl, let's call her Brittany, starts screaming and pointing at him. We all look and kind of freak out because he has a gun in the crook of his arm. He laughs and introduces himself as Wayne. Drunken friend Nick offers him a beer and me and a couple others start talking a bit with him. Eventually the issue of the gun comes up and Wayne explains that he's hunting something in the woods. I remember this specifically because he was pretty vague about what he was after, and I was thinking we're going to relieve Deliverance tonight and I'm just praying I'm not going to be Bobby and have to squeal like a pig. Of course drunk ass Nick tells him our plans for the night, camping, partying, etc. Wayne gets a little quiet and says that tonight might not be the best night for that. Ignore that shit, I'm a drunk teen.pdf. Eventually Wayne fucks off to go hunt Sasquatch or whatever. Side note about Wayne, last summer he was actually killed up by that lake. There was an article in the papers about him being some master tracker and living out in those woods for long periods of time. I don't think his death had anything to do with the later events of the story, but the general consensus around the town at the time of his death was that the news story was bullshit. Anyways, a girl Shannon decided that her and her boyfriend would go set up camp. I guess that's what the kids are calling it these days. They take the pickup up the mountain more to the side and proceed to touch genitals. Couple hours later we say fuck swimming and all pile back into the cars. Because the spare seats on the pickup left, some people have to pile in back of the Suburbans. Something seemed a little off at the time, but we chalked it up to the booze. We keep driving up the road counting the mile markers as we went up. The road to the side was a shitty gravel road off the main road, past mile marker 20. We head up the road a ways and have to stop because a tree is across the path. Not that large of a tree, so we all pile out and get it off to the side. We all climb back into the cars and once again something seems off. Did we forget someone? Asks Nick. We concluded that we had the 18 people that we needed, but something still felt odd. Eventually we make it up to the site. Obviously this wasn't an actual campsite and I have no idea how my friends found it, but apparently they had gone to this spot a few times before and never had any problems with the law. It was about 7 miles down the gravel road, deep into the forest of evergreens. It was surrounded on all sides by thick walls of trees. It was a pretty good sized spot, but more importantly it was secluded, which was exactly what we needed for the night. There was a large fire pit in the middle, but the stones around it had apparently been scattered around the clearing. The pickup is parked there but no people are outside and the camp is like 10% set up. We decide to fuck with the Shannon and her boyfriend Kyle, but when we came up on the truck we saw them fully clothed just kind of sitting in the back. Nick bangs his hand on the window and I swear they about jumped out of their skins. They realize who it is and come out, a little shaken but laughing. We ask what had them so rattled and they explain that they had started setting up camp about an hour ago. We know what they did for the first hour or two, when they stopped to have a smoke break. They said they had been by the fire pit when a really gross smell started to come from the woods. They had gone to the edge of the clearing when they had heard low voices babbling off in the woods. They noped the fuck out and locked themselves in the truck. Immediately we were blamed for fucking with them until I pointed out that about an hour ago we were all trying to move a tree that they left for us in the middle of the road. All around confusion when they said there had been no tree on the way up, but whatever, Oregon has a lot of trees and they fall over sometimes because trees are stupid like that. These two were probably just paranoid from the weed. We finish setting up the camp as the sun begins to set and begin the preparations for the night. We make some food, but with 20 people it goes pretty quickly. We continue drinking, smoking, and having a good time, as the sun got lower and disappeared. It was about 10:30 when one of the girls comes running out of the woods screaming bloody murder. Everyone stops what they're doing and listens to her sob about a person out in the woods. She said his back was to her and he was just kind of looking at the ground. When she called out to it, it raised its head and started twitching. This was when she realized it wasn't one of us and got the hell out of there. Most of the guys there were drunk and immediately angry at this guy in the woods. We decided it must be Wayne fucking with us, and so an elite squad of drunken high schoolers armed with varying sizes of branches went out towards where she saw it. We split up briefly in the woods, which was a very eerie feeling, and after about 15 minutes we decided we had scared Wayne off. We were regrouping back at the camp when the smell started again. The only thing I can describe it as is the smell of burnt hair plus the metallic smell of having a bloody nose, only 10 times worse. One or two of the drunker people actually vomited. One of the guys, Sam, decides he's had enough and wants to go back. After some debate we decided that he was probably sober enough to drive and that we would let him take a full pickup load back to his house. The girl from the woods, her boyfriend, Sam, and a second girl leave in the truck. The smell had died down quite a bit. Don't want to be labeled a pussy. Ignore that shit, I'm a drunk teen.pdf. We continue drinking and having fun, ignoring the feeling of something being off. Eventually I have to pee, so my friends Fletcher and Heston, referred to as Skeeter by our friends, walk down the gravel road a few hundred feet to drain the main vein. As we're peeing we notice someone in the middle of the road a little ways down. I'm a little uneasy, but Skeeter is a big dude, went on to play college football as a linebacker, so I figure we'd going to be okay. We walk up on the person, who has their back to us once again. I recognize that sweatshirt. Sam is standing in the middle of the road, in the dark, looking at the ground. Once again something seems off, but I can't quite place it, so we start to call out to him. No response. Start walking towards him and his head lifts up and can see him twitching. I finally realized what was so off. The woods around us are dead silent and have been for some time. I stop my two friends and whisper this to them. Skeeter doesn't think it's a big deal, but Fletcher is an avid hunter and agrees that something isn't right. We look back at Sam and he is about half as far away as he was before, back still turned and twitching, looking like he was doubled over, silently laughing. That did it for Skeeter and we all sprint back to the campground. The rest of the group is looking at us worriedly because all of us, even the giant ass Skeeter, are pale as a sheet, stammering about how we need to leave. There is a large argument about how none of us can drive because we're all too drunk and that if we're trying to mess with them it's not very funny. The smell comes back, worse this time, and I actually vomited, mostly beer. Branches begin to snap around the outskirts of the camp. We can only hear this because the forest hasn't hit unmute yet. Fletcher, the hunter, looks like he's about to shit himself as he points out that a four-legged animal wouldn't make sounds like that when walking, only a bipedal one. That's when we hear it. A low guttural voice comes out of the woods. Give me a fucking beer. Would have been comical if I wasn't already shitting myself and the voice had been normal. It sounded like a dog mixed with a woman screaming, with irregular pauses and volume adjustments. Help me. Fuckers. Mass fucking panic. People running to cars, managed to get one of the subs filled and send it off with the designated drunk driver, my friend Nick. We fill the other Suburban and I'm left outside to put out the fire. Well, drunken on, 18 years ain't a bad run. Dead fucking sprint to throw the water bucket over the fire, Usain bolted back to the car. Probably could have gotten a full ride if someone timed me. Dive over the 2 full rows of seats and take my spot in the very back. We make it back to the main road and are about halfway back to town when we see the other Suburban in a ditch with everyone around it. Drunk ass Nick crashed. Nick won't really meet eyes with anyone and is muttering something under his breath. I get closer to him and realize he's reciting the Hail Mary under his breath. He won't acknowledge me and looks pale as a sheet. The smell is back. We are trying to figure out what to do when the whole road is lit up like day. One of those huge, lifted trucks with about 1 million lights on it pulls up to us. It stops and shines its lights on us for what seems like an hour, probably more like a minute though. The lights cut off and Wayne hops out, his gun in hand. Pretty uneventful from here, crams the people from First Suburban into his pickup. Asks each one of us for our names before he lets anyone get back into any car. Drops us all at our friend's house and leaves. Nick gets a fat ticket and a suspended license for DUI and leaving the scene of the accident, but his mom's Suburban seems okay. He killed himself about 3 months later. He had been complaining about lack of sleep and I think the whole experience really fucked with him. Skeeter and I ran into Wayne again, later that summer at the lake. We saw his truck at a popular swimming hole and went to ask a few questions. He seemed pretty honest about most things until I asked him why he had been so intent on asking us all of our names the night he picked us up because we assumed he was planning on reporting us to the Rangers or something, but we never heard anything about it, besides Nick. I'll never forget his answer. When I pulled up to you guys I counted 17 people, but when I asked for your names I only got 16. One of your little friends walked back into the woods when I had my lights on him. Of course it sounded like bullshit to me until I began to think of the events that night. Starting with the swimming hole, there had been something off about the trip that I hadn't realized until we had gotten into the cars. There had always been an extra person with us. I think they slipped in during the swimming and slipped out when we were moving the tree. It came back in when we sent out our little hunting party and must have slipped back out when we were all drinking, only to come back into the group when we were all shitting ourselves trying to get out of there. That's why I had to sit in the back, because we had an extra person that put us over the seat limit. I don't think it was ever in my car though. I think my friend Nick noticed it in his car and that's what made him crash. That's what made him cry and pray that night, and I guarantee that's what made him cowl himself.